I hope it's not a task force that has easy conversations. I think you should have tough conversations because this is a tough issue. And on a personal note, before I swear you in, I would just like to say to Tamisha, I am very sorry about what happened to your sister-in-law. Tamisha's sister-in-law was a victim of gun violence recently. And I just wanted to say my heart goes out to you and your family and the town.
Thank you, Nancy.
Sympathies to you.
Thank you. So now it's more impactful for me. You know, it hit home.
Absolutely.
So.
Well, welcome. I'm glad you're here. And there was a reason why you're here.
Exactly. Thank you. Thanks, everyone.
So, okay. So I'm going to ask everybody to raise their right hand and repeat after me. Do you solemnly swear that you will faithfully discharge, according to the law, your duties as a member of the Town of Fairfield's Racial Equity and Justice Task Force to the best of your ability? So help you God.
I do.
I do.
I swear.
Well, thank you. And I wish I could stay on, but I actually have to be on another conference call. I rushed home quick, and but I'm really glad for the work you're doing. And Nancy, can I just ask, are you going to have Fair TV cover any of these? Do you think that would be?
Yeah. So in terms of the first two meetings, while we're getting our bearings straight, we're recording them on Zoom, and we will post those.
Oh, okay.
And then I wanted to have a more in-depth conversation both with this group and with the people who know better and Fair TV to see what one is budgeted and what's possible, what the group wanted. And but certainly we're going to post this as a recording. So we'll have that option.
Where are you going to post it?
I was told that we could post it to YouTube and that the town website would, that somehow Dave Kelly would help us do that. So
good.
yeah, and I've been talking to your office. I've been talking to Jen, who's been helpful on that front. And again, wanted to kick off officially with the group so that we could make some decisions collectively, which I guess it is almost 6 o'clock. Brenda, you are on the official, so we're not officially you are officially on our agenda to welcome the group. So I don't know if you want to wait 2 minutes or if you want us just to acknowledge that you were here in advance based on your schedule.
Yeah, I mean, I think I just would reiterate what I said before. I really do appreciate each of you stepping up to serve on this on this task force. And I'm looking forward to the community hearing your conversations. I'm glad to hear, Nancy, that they're going to be recorded, and that way people can't sign on and have an opportunity. And I hope that, will you and Gina be putting an email up? Will there be like a task force email or something of that sort?
Yeah, I mean, all of this is going to, again, be sorted out. We want to make sure that people have the easiest way to access the information, access these meetings, that all of it is in full view of the community. I've said from the beginning that it's imperative that we have community buy-in across the board, because this work won't be impactful and long lasting unless that's the case. So. Right.
And if you had like a task force email, where people could ask everybody questions like you were selected, we can do that as well.
So if you could mute if you're not talking.
All right. Well, I'm going to thank each and every one of you again, and I hope you have a good first meeting. And if you need anything from me at all, ever, my email is easy to get on the town website, or you can always call the office.
Thanks, Brenda.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone. Take care.
All right. Well, it is 6 o'clock p.m. and I am so proud to officially call this meeting to order of the Racial Equity and Justice Task Force, meeting 1, October 19th, 2020, 6 p.m. And I welcome all of you. And for the purposes of this meeting, we've agreed, Karen Lynch has agreed to take notes and will be the official note taker for this meeting. We'll be voting on a secretary, a transcriber, someone who will take notes, and whether we decide as a group to have that switch off, or whether it's one dedicated person with a backup, we can discuss that. But for the purposes of this meeting, thank you to Karen Lynch for agreeing to do that. Next up on the meeting agenda, as per typical of town meetings, is the Pledge of Allegiance. If anyone has a strong feeling about whether or not that is something that remains part of the agenda, we can discuss that. But again, for purposes of this meeting, I invite you all to join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. And I'm going to admit a few more people who are here. So together we say, I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United
States of
States of
America
America,
and
to
to
the republic
to
for
which
which it stands, one
one
nation,
nation, under
God,
God,
indivisible,
indivisible, with liberty
and justice for
for
all,
all.
with a great emphasis on justice for all. Amen, I say. We've just heard off the record or offline before the meeting officially started from the first select woman who swore the members in. So we will not be hearing from her now. She did give us some words of support and encouragement and welcome. So thank you to Brenda Kupchik, first select woman, for convening this group, for swearing the group in, and for your words of support. My name is Nancy Lefkowitz. I am a select woman for Fairfield. I'm a Democrat. I'm the minority select woman, and I'm co-chair of the Racial Equity Justice Task Force, along with, and I turn it to you, Gina, to introduce yourself.
I'm Gina Little. I'm the co-chair of the task force. And I just want to say that I am so grateful for the opportunity to commence this work with you. I think we had a really wonderful time talking to you, and we feel like we wanted to find people who represented a cross section of our community. You're here to represent our community, to represent the drive toward equity and justice that this community is asking for. And I just am so grateful that you've given us your time and attention. And I hope that together we can really work to build something that is going to have a lasting effect on our community. So thank you all for joining us.
So one thing I want to remind everybody is, if you could put yourselves on mute when you're not speaking. If you want to be recognized, you can either raise your hand, there's a chat function down below. If you scroll your cursor down to the bottom, you'll see a chat function. On this call, we have, quote, the official members of the task force. There's 11 of us, including me and Gina. But, and I say this most graciously, so I hope it's received in the spirit in which it's intended, and that is, it was a wealth of riches. We could have made this task force 3 times over with a totally different group, and it would have been strong and amazing, and we wish we could have, but unfortunately we were limited by the demands of just the 9 spots for practical reasons. So I'm so glad that we are joined by what I'll call the ad hoc members who are not kind of official, but are here to do the work. And I would say 99.8% that was the response from all of you who we spoke with, that even if you couldn't be an official member, you wanted to still do this work. So we keep saying it's going to take collective community buy-in, and that is true 100%. This first meeting is a little bit kind of more on the logistics front. We're going to talk about the meeting schedule. We're going to get to you'll introduce yourselves to one another. I don't know that everybody knows each other. Gina and I have had the great pleasure of meeting everybody on this call. I believe there's one number I don't recognize, but in seeing you, we have, but you haven't met each other. So I think we will leave it to, unless you have specific questions for me and Gina, we will turn it to all of you. And again, in the interest of just easy logistics, I will recognize you as a member. And then if you could introduce yourself, and doesn't have to be, you know, a minute. Say some of the sort of pertinent things or anything that's on your mind, just to give the other members a sense of who you are and why you're here. And I do, Tamisha, also just want to personally echo what Brenda had said, what the first selectwoman had said in her remarks before the meeting began. And I'm so sorry for your loss, and that your family has been a victim of gun violence. It's an issue that actually pulled me into politics as an activist on gun violence prevention. And I'm just profoundly sorry. And just one more reason that it's so important that you're here and we stand united. So I just wanted to share in that sentiment that I'm very sorry for your tragic loss.
Thank you.
With that, and again, in no particular order except for what is on my screen, up next on the agenda is the introduction of the official task force members, and then we will turn it over to members of the public who are inclined to speak. So Alex, I start with you, and again, please have yourselves on mute until called on, and then remember to unmute yourself. So Alex, to you.
Thank you so much, Nancy. And thank you to everyone on this call. I'm very excited to learn from you and learn about you and contribute to this work. A little bit about me. I'm actually a born and raised neighbor to Connecticut, raised in Rhode Island as a first-generation American. My family is from Colombia, so I am both bilingual and bicultural. I have lived in Fairfield since 2013. And in those 7 years, I've been a renter as a single person, a homeowner as a married person, a renter as a single mom, and now a homeowner as a single mom. So very different perspectives at each point. My professional experience is in HR. Since 2009, I've done HR in the retail industry, K through 12, veterinary, nonprofit. I just finished my master's at the University of Connecticut, and I was very delighted to see that one of my professors, Sonia, is actually on the task force as well. Coincidence, but very happy about that. Very powerful lady. Learned a lot from. A little bit more about myself. I live with my son, who's a junior at Fairfield Ludlow, and I want to use my skill set, focus group, listening groups in both English and Spanish to help draw out qualitative data, come up with analyses. I want to be able to share my HR experience in interpreting and evaluating policy. And again, my perspective as a working single mom of color in this town, living in different tax brackets. So happy to be here.
Thank you so much. And you actually answered in your sharing of your information, you answered something that would be great if everybody also could address, not only your professional background or your specific subject matter expertise, but kind of where you're interested in going. So data analysis. So if you have, if anyone specifically is interested in education or mental health, police, if you could also mention those identifying categories, that would be helpful as well. So thank you. So now I turn it to your professor, Sonia.
Well, thank you so very much. Hang on, let me just put the video on so you can actually see me. There we go. So I have lived in Fairfield for about 16 years. I am a professor at the University of Connecticut. I teach MBA students and HR students in many subjects around leadership and HR. I'm also a minority-owned business owner in Fairfield as well. So I have my own business that actually creates a revenue fund to two charities in the state of Connecticut. In addition to that, I have over 35 years of human resource experience in various nonprofit, private equity, private companies, and global companies around the world. I've lived in 39 different countries, and I think what I bring to the table will be the cultural awareness and diversity. I am a mom of two boys. One is a Marine, a United States Marine. Very proud of him, and the other one is a 10th grader at Ward. I think my focus would be more around things that have to do with police. Certainly anything around mental advocation would be another component, anything around change management and anything that touches the HR space would be an area that I think I could add value. And I'm really excited to work with everyone.
Thank you. Tamisha, I think maybe you might have to go because of an RTM meeting. So if that's the case or not the case, I'll just turn it to you next anyway.
Sure. Hi, my name is Tamisha Powell Dunmore. I live here in Fairfield, Connecticut. We've been here about 3 years and I love it. I loved it even before I lived here. I would drive up from Norwalk and, peruse through the coastal homes and, the neighborhood. And I was grateful when we were able to purchase a home here. I am married. We've been together, my husband and I, for about 20 years. Married 12. We have 2 children. Our son is 10 years old and our daughter's 4 going on 20. They attend public schools and not public schools, nursery school in Trumbull. My son goes to a private school in Trumbull. My husband is the coach at a Christian school in Trumbull. That's why our son goes there. And I was honored to join the task force to really get a balance of all perspectives. I don't believe, oh God, I just believe evil has no color. I don't believe violence is a color. I believe it's more to that. And I really want to learn and grow and hear from different perspectives and be a balance within the group. What else about me? Oh, how can I forget, Nancy? This is my first year. I'm a District 6 RTM member for the town, and I'm enjoying it. It's a lot of paperwork, and it's, just a fruitful labor, and I enjoy every part of it, learning about Fairfield, the different families that we support here in Fairfield. And I'm just excited to be a part of this community and excited to affect change and, hear everyone's voice and give a voice to the voiceless. That's my real heart in this mission.
Thank you. And
Thank you.
It'll be very nice to have a connection to another town body, the legislative body in town, and perhaps at another meeting, if that's what we decide,
Exactly.
we can make sure that there's like an ongoing dialogue connection between the RTM and this group, because the accountability piece is going to be critical across all bodies. So next I turn it to
Nancy.
Sandra. Yes.
Sorry, RTM is what?
Representative town meeting.
Thank you.
And maybe we can add to the agenda a bit of a civics lesson next time in terms of how this fits into a bigger picture, or we can add it as a new item, agenda item, a real quick picture. So thank you for asking that. Representative town meeting, it's our legislative body. Sandra, I turn to you.
Hi, I'm Sandra Tallman. My husband's on the RTM too, Tamisha. He's District 8. So I don't know if you've ever been in conversation with him. So he's another avenue that we can always use. So I have lived in Fairfield for about 26 years. And I'm a physics teacher at Wilton High School. I have an engineering degree and I have my master's in secondary science education from Southern. So, that's sort of my background. As far as the task force goes, Tamisha, I love how you just said you want to get the balance of all perspectives. I come from a very homogeneous area. I have lived in one for 26 years. I teach in one. I taught at Laurelton Hall, which is the same type of situation. I'm so interested in learning everybody's perspective. I am hoping that I can be someone to foster open communication and with everybody. And I'm interested in educating people from all groups. And I think that that's where we need to go for a lot of this stuff. And I have been trying to volunteer at low income school districts to the STEM students, people that can't afford physics tutors and chemistry tutors. And so we're sort of addressing things on a different level, you know, in that way too. So I'm just a big education proponent. And I also would like to focus on the police force if, or, you know, the any of that kind of conversation if you're taking notes, Nancy, which I'm sure you are. So that's kind of my deal.
Thank you. Jason.
Nancy, I'm sorry, it's Sonia again. I apologize. I just want to be very transparent. I think it's important because we're talking about this, that I am married to a police officer for New Haven.
Great, thank you. Great to have that perspective, and I appreciate the transparency. To that point, you know, Gina and I have been saying from the beginning, I'll just add that we are the engine, and certainly I feel very strongly that I'm really just here to help move a train along, but that ultimately, and not even ultimately, as of, you know, this moment, this really belongs to all of us collectively. And we need to be able to share freely in exchange of ideas, and listening is what I'm hearing, you know, as kind of a thing that we keep coming back to. So please, like, while Gina and I are kind of charged with keeping things on track, you know, this really is a collective effort here. So Jason, I believe that I had said your name, so you're up.
Yes. Good evening, everyone. My name is Jason Sherrod. I've been a Fairfield resident for over 20 years. I'm a graduate of Fairfield High School. So I was a teenager in Fairfield. I went away, I'm a former Marine. So after high school, I went away into the Marine Corps. And then I moved back to Fairfield about 12 years ago. So I have 3 children. 2 are graduates of Fairfield Ludlow High School. The third is a freshman at Fairfield Ludlow High School this year. I'm a technology specialist. I work at Bridgewater Associates as an engineer. My background is primarily in networking and cybersecurity. I have a second career as a real estate sales agent. So I'm a licensed real estate sales agent as well, working for Yellow Brick Realty. If you've ever seen the signs around Fairfield, you may have seen them here and there. This topic and being a person of color and racial equity in the town of Fairfield is something very close to me, as it's something I've experienced personally and have been a longtime Fairfield resident. I'm looking forward to getting involved and to have as many conversations as possible to try to identify some of the systems and areas where there's current inequalities. I'm really looking forward to learning more from each and every one of us. Yeah, areas of interest. I definitely have areas of interest in the police force. I personally know many Fairfield police officers. I either went to school with them or work out with them or do something with them outside of work. So the police area, I often have these conversations already with the police officers that I know. So I would like to definitely, that's an area of interest. I think zoning is another area of interest, and education is another area I'd be interested in looking at. So.
Great, thank you. Okay, and so Steve, you are up. And make sure you unmute. Yep.
Okay. Hi, everybody. I'm Steve, the happiest guy in Fairfield. You see him right here. I know everybody's happy, but I'm actually the happiest guy in Fairfield. So I'll start with that. I'm a long time. I grew up in the area. I moved from Chicago when I was in high school. I went to Weston High School and graduated in 1978. So I'll give away my age right away. We went to Northwestern University from there and got my degree in adolescent counseling, and had my goal of being a teacher, high school teacher and coach. Played football and baseball in college. Also, my goal was to to go away and to move back to the area and raise my kids, which I did. I have 2 kids that I raised through Fairfield school systems, both in college today. Very excited to be a part of this. It's very dear to my heart. I was born in the South Side of Chicago. I was raised in the suburbs, so it's kind of shocking what happened in the last, since George Floyd. But I've been kind of in my own way, tracking this path and fighting the fight. And so here we are. I have a lot to learn, a lot to add. My areas of focus are teenagers, adolescents, mental health, teen suicide prevention specifically. I brought a speaker to town last year to speak on the subject with John Troutline, and my other areas of focus are excessive force used by the police and systemic racial bias. I've been actively working on all those issues basically all my life, but for the last few years especially. Happy to be here.
Thank you. And again, in no particular order except for what comes up on my screen. Amy?
Good evening, everyone, and it's really quite an honor to be here. I've been a resident of Fairfield for the last 39 years. I've lived in 7 countries. I have 2 girls who have gone through the Fairfield High School system, and they are now on their own, working and being productive members of society. What brings me to this task force is because I've seen the town grow and seen the things that have evolved in the last 30 plus years that I've been here, and the changes as well. After 9/11, I was, and I still do a lot police training on diversity. So I go to police stations around Connecticut and do diversity training there for them. I am a children's author, a spiritual writer, an artist as well. And I was leading the premier Sikh education organization in the United States. I'm still part of that, but no longer as a CEO. I am now their creative director. What interests me most is education. And I am also on the board of the Interfaith Council in Southwest Connecticut. So my work is really education, interfaith, and obviously police work, because I've been doing that for the last, I don't know how many years. I say, have a suitcase, will travel, just call me and I'm there. That is me.
So much more. Thank you. Douglas.
Hi, and just going forward, it's Doug. Let's just go with Doug.
Let's go with Doug.
I'm Doug. I'm a grandfather living here in Fairfield. Been here for 9 years now. 2 adult children living elsewhere, but I'm a clinical psychologist, and I am so humbled and honored to be part of this group, and really sort of looking forward to digging and doing some work. My major focus, not surprisingly, is on mental health aspects of this, and I really want to bring that perspective. When I spoke with Nancy and Gail, or Gina rather, about this, I really spend a lot of my work dealing with the after effects of trauma. We talk about capital T and small t trauma, but so not just like the big ticket items, but sort of the insidious, implicit, repetitive, sort of small scale sorts of things that actually just leave marks on people. And I think that perspective is something that could be really useful in this work. So I want to bring that. My wife, Becky, is actually quite involved in the town on the flood and erosion board, but also on more ecological and green issues. And I think that's something I'd really like to get on our agenda too, to look at the disproportionate effect of climate change and just what's going on ecologically on people who may not have the same privileges to avoid it. So those are sort of my interest and focus. And again, I'm just delighted to be part of this group and honored to be chosen to contribute.
Great, thank you. And Karen, we turn to you.
Hi. I'm going to just remember what I said and not type while I'm talking because that's crazy. So I'm Karen
For you,
Lynch.
Karen, don't worry. I'll
No,
send it to you.
I'm cool. I can remember what I said, most likely. I'm Karen Lynch. I have lived in Fairfield 22 years. I have 3 children plus a bonus child. My oldest 2 are away at school, one in DC, one in Philly. I have one who is taking a gap year, for lack of a better word, working full-time, not at college. All of those are graduates of Ward High School, and I currently have a junior at Ward at the moment. My husband is former RTM. He hung that hat up several years ago when it just wasn't going to work for him anymore. Let's see. So about me, I am, what I usually tell people is I've been a professional listener my entire life. I'm a focus group moderator. Alexandra, it's really funny to hear you to reference that. So qualitative researcher, where I literally listen to people to gather their opinions and report back to the powers that be. Remaining objective and practicing active listening are in my DNA right now. I've been a facilitator for creative problem solving and strategic planning for, equally as long, which we're now approaching 30 years in this field. And kind of along with that, I've been a journalist and a writer and a blogger, so again, a lot of listening happening there as well. So that's who I am. I would say I'm very interested in education for obvious reasons. I think a lot of us as parents, have a passion for that. I of course am interested in some of the other things too, but going back, and I can't really read my notes here, but when one of you mentioned kind of systemic bias, I am acutely aware of implicit biases in place, and I would love to raise awareness that everybody has them, and that raised awareness is actually step 1, so that we can start to fight them and get to a core value, which I believe we all share, which is equity and equality. So that's sort of our goal. Oh, Steve, I just popped up at me. Steve, you were the one that said it. Let's tackle those racial biases, and again, get people aware of them, and then maybe we can start to overcome them.
So I think that is everyone on the official task force. And before turning it over to any members of the public that would like to comment, and I hope that you will, and I see Molly McHugh here, so at the risk of embarrassing you, Molly, I'm going to call you out in a minute. But just to recap, this is an incredible group. So thank you for that. Looking through the lens of racial equity and justice, it seems that there have been a few themes that have popped out, at least, and I want to say this so that we as a group have an opportunity to kind of marinate on some of what's been said, so that we can take it and inform our agenda for next time. But through active listening, through data analysis, through collecting qualitative data, it seems like the areas that keep coming up again are systemic issues, implicit bias through government and politics, through HR, and small business, police, education, mental health, environment and sustainability, culture, and religion. And so those are some of the broad themes that I kept hearing. And so when we turn this over, when we get into discussing the mission and the purpose, I wanted to call out those words. And if anyone else has anything to add to that, raise your hand. I'm happy to. Gina, do you want to add something?
Yeah, I just wanted to sort of add to what Nancy was saying. Given the large task of racial justice and equity, the reason why we've selected you, I'm glad that you got a chance to hear what we heard from you. And again, want to reiterate, we heard a lot of that from really are hoping from this group is that we as a collective can really set the agenda for what we want our long-term goal is we are developing a blueprint for racial justice and equity in Fairfield. That is what this task force has been tasked to do. And so, we're asking you to bring those experiences to us. As a group, we're going to be deciding what we're looking at. And this is something that we said to you individually, but collectively as a group, we're looking to build from within this group, where we think that what this blueprint should look like, and bringing in your experiences and bringing in, your ideas for what the town needs. But, I think I've said this all to you individually, that, equity is not a zero-sum game. It isn't about taking from someone else to give to someone else. This is really about making sure that we are inviting everyone to the table, and that when it is not fair for some of us, it's not fair for any of us. So we're really looking to build in what we say that we are, to help Fairfield become the thing that we have all said that we are. But I think next, I do want to get to introduction of the public in attendance, because I think there are some fantastic people that we spoke to that I would like you to hear from as well, and so that we can figure out how we can use the resources that we have going forward, because there are some amazing other people in town that I think would be just tremendous resources to this group.
Agree. And I will echo to say that, certainly for this first meeting, as we're getting some of the logistics out of the way, I'm speaking way more than I ever want to after this meeting. I recognize that is the charge for today, but really next time, this is going to be about the group, not just kind of hearing from me or hearing from Gina. Molly, I'm going to call on you unless you're not able to get on. But if you are here as a member of the public and do want to speak, either again, raise your hand or send me a chat and I will call on you. But Molly, are you, and what, if you could just, again, introduce your full name and, make a comment, again, free form here, just knowing that we do want to have a chance to get to everybody, so.
Yep, hi. There we go. Can you hear me now? We good? All right. I'm Molly Q. I'm a teacher in Fairfield, lifelong resident of Fairfield. So I've been here my whole life. And actually I have taught a lot of your children on here. When I went through, about 50%, anyone who went through Fairfield Woods, I was probably their PE teacher, hopefully their favorite one. But I wanted to pop in tonight and say hello and see what the task force was all about. And also, I am the chair of a subcommittee of the Fairfield Education Association of Teachers. We have an anti-racism committee that started late spring, early summer, and I am part of the community outreach subcommittee. And we are working on some projects currently, and I wanted to just sort of drop a note, give a little plug for one of our projects that we are working on, because it is coming up quickly. We've sort of put it together just in the last week and we're still working on it. And I thought it would line up with your mission. So I wanted to let you know that as a teacher committee, we are working with First Church Congregational and hopefully your task force. We are looking to put together something called a land acknowledgement. And if that's not something you're familiar with, we are looking to honor and show gratitude to our Indigenous community for their land that we are currently on. It's a way to hopefully help heal and reconcile between descendants of the oppressors and the oppressed. The ceremony is obviously not enough. It's a kicking off point, and then we will look as a anti-racism committee in the schools how to move forward with making it meaningful by increasing our education for all children and families about Fairfield's history. So we are planning that for November 1st, and it will be on the property of First Church Congregational, but depending on the size of the group that we gather and social distancing, we're assuming we might be spread out over town property. That's my little puppy who loves to come to Zooms.
Molly,
yeah.
Would you be able to please put this in writing so that we could submit it if there's an official ask or invitation for the task force? It would be great to have something in writing so that we can share it publicly. And if it gives us something to act on, if you want official support, it just that way we can put it on an agenda item and actually.
Absolutely. I will get it all to you in writing. And also, if anybody on this call is more familiar with it, I have to tell you, we're a really passionate group, but full disclosure, none of us have ever been part of this type of ceremony before, and we're researching and learning. So if there's anyone who has experience with this and wants to contact me, I can also get you my information as well.
Thank you. Is there anybody else from the public who would like to say hello or introduce themselves? Hi, Ryan.
Hello.
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 I see Ryan.
Hi. Nancy, it's Patrina Cash. I'm on by phone. I'm not
Okay,
on.
Okay, so Ryan, we'll come to you. I'll call on Patrina and then we'll turn to Ryan Odenak. Patrina, please go ahead.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Patrina Cash, and I'm a resident in town for the past 4 years. I moved to Fairfield from Trumbull. I was a resident of Trumbull pretty much all my life. I have 2 adult children who graduated from the Trumbull school system. During the time that they were in school, I was very involved in Trumbull with their town diversity committee for the Board of Ed. And I've also lived in Bridgeport and was actively involved at one time as a member of Mary Jane Foster's campaign when she ran for mayor in Bridgeport. I am a member at First Church, and thank you, Molly, for bringing up about the land acknowledgement, which will be happening on November the 1st. And my interest is to give support to the task force. More than likely looking at the issues and the systemic racist policies that may exist in different departments within the town, and also looking at the police department. So that is my goal for working with the task force as an ad hoc committee person. Thank you.
Ryan, do you want to go ahead?
Oh, yeah, sure. Ryan Odenak. I've lived in Fairfield about 30 years, primarily working in the arts as the director of, formerly the director of the Cultural Alliance of Fairfield County. Before that, as the executive director of the Fairfield Arts Council, and most currently working in the development department at the Fairfield Theater Company. In those positions, I've done a lot of community organizing and projects in other towns in the county as well. And just wanted to bring any expertise that I might have to this effort, which I think is super important, and pretty much willing to do anything, to support it. I've also, run a lot of groups, done strategic planning, have a lot of experience bringing groups to consensus and things like that, and also writing. So and on the personal side, I raised my kids here. One of my daughters is currently an RTM member, and and I'm doing my own, as well as working at FTC, I have creative practice as well as a writer and creative writer and artist. So.
And thank you. Your experience having run a commission in this town and a board is so important. So please, don't be shy, jump in if there are flags here. We want to do this in the best way. And if you have thoughts and ideas. So thank you for joining us today. Is there anyone else from the public that wanted to weigh in? And again, no pressure. This is ongoing. Kathy, thank you for raising your hand. Kathy, go ahead. And Jamie, I'll call. Please, Jamie, after Kathy goes, just jump right in. And please say your full name.
Hi, everybody. I'm Kathy Wyant. I'm happy to be here to support all of you and do this work that I think is really, really important. I've lived in Fairfield for 27 years, raised 3 kids here. My 2 daughters have already graduated college and left, and they're off on their own in other places. My son has special needs, and he's at a transition school outside of New Haven right now, learning how to be independent, like we hope all of our kids learn how to be independent. I'm a retired attorney. I have also spent a few years being a chaplain, both at Yale New Haven Hospital, an interfaith chaplain, by the way, at Yale New Haven Hospital and also at the VA. So I have all sorts of different experience. I have lots of volunteer experience. I've run a foundation at Bridgeport Hospital for pediatrics. I've been involved in fundraising things. I've been involved in lots of contract work. I was a corporate attorney. So I'm happy to support you in absolutely any way I can. I am a good listener. I'm a very empathic listener, having been taught how to be an empathic listener if I didn't already know. And I'm also very well versed in writing and interpreting contracts and that kind of stuff. So I can also do lots of boring stuff that can be kind of important. And I love I just want to echo what Gina said about so that we are, to help Fairfield, so that we are what we think we are, what we're saying we are. I think that's so important. I really do. So that's it.
Hi, I'm Jamie Forbes, and I've lived in Fairfield for 20 years. And before that, maybe 10 years before that as well, our first home was in Fairfield. And I was a director of education at the Unitarian Church and youth outreach at the Unitarian Church for about 15 years. And now I am still a part of the church and part of a women's group. And we have a racial justice. We've kind of starting to focus on racial justice. So I'm really happy to support this group. I think it's a wonderful group. I'm here to learn and kind of give feedback to our women's group at the Unitarian Church, and just to support you in any way. Happy to be here.
Thank you. And I think that is such an important thing, what you just said, this idea of being a force multiplier to our various networks, whether it's reporting back to the RTM through your channels or again, your various networks, and bringing back feedback, in reverse. So thank you, Jamie. Did anyone else from the public want to say anything? Okay. And there will be other opportunities. So moving on to the agenda. Oh, Dan, Dan, go ahead, please. Welcome.
Thank you. So I'm Dan Iacovella. I'm a consultant. I help to build permanent supportive housing for homeless and low-income families. And I'm also working on making a film. And I've led in the area of racism for about 17 years. Why it's such a key issue for me is because I think racism, any social justice issue at its core, is infected by racism, and that's why we have those issues. So I want to work at the core rather than at the branches. And my work is generally focused on helping people develop listening skills through things called listening partnerships or doing public listening projects. And it's, I think I bring a perspective that might be helpful, or hopefully is helpful, in that I think racism was created to try to isolate people. So the way you eliminate it is to build relationships with people. And that includes being able to develop listening skills with people you strongly disagree with. And that defining people as racist or not is a way of keeping people separate. So we want to just sort of realize that we've all been born into this racist society. And so we want to work to, we can't take a perspective of moral superiority just because we're doing this work. We want to reach for everyone to truly eliminate it. And I do believe it could be eliminated because humans created it. And so as humans, we could eliminate it. So thank you.
Thank you. In fact, you gave me language just now, which I'll just throw out to the group as kind of homework. This idea of listening projects or listening partnerships as kind of the umbrella for the different categories. And one of the things, Gina, do you want to jump on this, what we were talking about?
Yeah, I mean, it kind of goes with our next agenda item, which is reviewing the mission statement. Our task, now that you've chosen to accept it, is that we have until January 2022 to come up with a plan, a racial equity plan for Fairfield. That's our mission. That's what we're here to do. And so to that end, one of the things that we really thought about is you're representing a cross-section of the community, but we really want to find out, what does the community really think? And so we wanted to start a series of, listening activities where we could get out and have sort of really directed conversations with certain constituents. So, and this is our homework for next week, is to kind of figure out what those constituents are. And these meetings that we're having, invite certain members of the community to answer certain questions. And I think, when we're looking at our mission and how we're saying we're going to address it, one is our database decision making, which is, a lot of what Karen and Alex and Sonia and Dan have done a lot of experience with, is helping us collect the information and figuring out how we can use it to make decisions. But community engagement is one of the pillars that we're looking at. And really it's about, if we're going to address the needs of our community, we need to know what they are. And that we're going to need to really make sure that we're hearing from people that are very different from us, because while I think Nancy says often that there aren't two sides to a lot of this, there are different perspectives that deserve respect. And we have to learn how to have these conversations, and we have to learn how, sometimes people need, support releasing old ideas. And I take that approach at all times, that it is just about people we're at different phases of our journey and different phases of understanding of what we need to do in terms of racial justice and equity. So the homework is to come back next week with our list of what groups and constituents we want to speak to, and get those scheduled so that we can actually start getting people in for these conversations, right, Nance?
Yeah, and I would say too that if you are interested in putting a specific item on the agenda, email that in advance, because we do want to make people aware of what topics are. So if you have thoughts before the next meeting, feel free to email. Something you just said, and I lost the train of thought because the dogs are going crazy in the background about, I'm going to come back to it. Give me 30 seconds, not even. Sorry, it was complete. Oh, the idea that we have a very tall order, that, to emphasize what Gina just said, to have a racial equity plan, a blueprint for the town by 2022, it's not a lot of time. So I would just encourage us, this should certainly be a space where we can, and we will do a lot of listening, and we should dare to dream from the sublime to the ridiculous, and no thing too big or too small. But I think it's also important that we remain focused and clear on our ultimate agenda. And so I would encourage us that when we do want to put something on the agenda and have an item for discussion, that we remember what our ultimate plan is, and that it has to, my son is bringing me flowers. Thank you. Okay. Sorry about that. So again, just a reminder that we do have this tall order, or to reiterate, we have this tall order, that if we can make sure that, we're just constantly remembering that and coming back to that, I think it'll help us stay focused, and I think it will help us be successful and effective. And while we do have language in this mission statement, we should feel free to really, and maybe you guys want to look at the mission statement and flesh it out and flex it a little bit and look through it and figure out what's working, what's not working. So again, I'm going to put that back to all of you. The title of the group, is it saying what we need it to say? So, again, no idea too big or too small, as long as we remain focused and clear and certain that our mission is to deliver a blueprint to the town, and we'll have benchmarks along the way. So I do just want to offer one more opportunity in case there is someone else. Anyone have a comment at this point? Question?
I have a question.
Yeah, Steve.
Are we actually looking at the town charter, the wording in the town charter? I'm looking at some brick and mortar stuff. Just
Yeah.
I mean, it's a 71-page document that is. Is somebody going to review it?
Yeah. So I think. Can I jump in there, Nancy?
Yeah, jump, because then there is actually an official town answer too.
Okay. Thanks.
So I think, in our task force, we say we're going to be looking at the policies, procedures, ordinances, and charter review. So that is actually something that is in our mission statement to do. I think it's tall order because there's a lot of, like you said, there's a lot of paper. So it's the kind of thing that we want to, divide and conquer. And really, people who are passionate about that, and there are people on this call who are passionate about that, who are not me, we want to really start, dividing up in that way so that, if that's what you love to do, I want you to get your hands in there and get started on that. I will not be doing that with you because I like the people part, but Nancy's good. So that, it really is about, looking at the town charter. And I think the town, the Board of Selectmen agreed to our mission statement. So that is, they know it's coming.
Yeah.
So what I'm trying to get at is if there's specific tasks that we know we're going to do, let's get them out listed, review the charter. And then the other stuff that we're going to do kind of works off of all that.
And I think it's concurrent. I think publicly that it's going to be really important that there is a lot of listening that happens in the beginning in terms of bringing groups together, but it doesn't mean that concurrently, to your point, Steve, that we can't be looking at these various, whether it's the charter. Now, there is an official, at some point, Brenda, the first select woman, has talked about calling together an official charter review committee. We can, as a task force, decide that we want to submit a letter to say, we respectfully submit that we'd like a member of the task force to be part of that committee. They would then have to, I think, publicly say, well, you're not going to be an official member, but make recommendations, or yes, be an official member, or you can be a liaison. So I think because this plays out publicly, both this meeting and that process, we have an opportunity to make recommendations. And so again, as a group, I think adding to the plate of the homework plate is parsing out that mission statement that the Board of Selectmen has agreed to, and really defining what those tasks are, Steve. So, if charter review is in there, let's put that on as an action item and figure out how we can tackle some of those things.
My goal for the next meeting is to really have our list of action items. That's where we're assigning homework. And so that, as of the next time we meet next week, we have our list of action items and we decide what our path forward is. Because like we said, this all came, we needed you to help us decide where we want to go. This meeting's more about the logistics of it. Next week is like boots on the ground, we get started. So if everyone could come back to the next meeting with, your ideas. And if you could send it to us beforehand, that's even better because we can get that on the agenda. There are rules about how the agendas and the meetings work that I don't really get, but I know that, we need to as an agenda item so that people know that that's coming.
So Gina, yeah, thank you. So one of the things I'd like to add to the agenda is where does the survey fit in? Because there was a survey that was administered, I believe, to our residents at Fairfield. Will we be able to see that data? I think that fits in with, review of the charter and what comes out of that data.
So I think a great action step would be to sort of identify what data exists, collect it, and then figure out, because yes, data exists. I know like the schools did a survey and, I don't know what's out there. So I think as a great action item is to really find out what's out there and then figure out what we need to add to it. One thing that may help, just as a recommendation, is to literally take this statement and go paragraph by paragraph and say, all right, I see an action step here. For instance, one of the step is data-based decision making. Well, how do we get there? To your point, Sonia, it's collecting data. It's, again, do we need to reinvent the wheel? Should we look at what's out there? Community engagement is one item of under the scope of work and action steps. So community engagement and continuous learning. So under that, are there groups that you think we need to be identifying that we talk to? Policies, procedures, and charter view. There's going to be a bunch of actions there. So it would be great if you individually look through this and then, again, as Gina is saying, is come back to us with your ideas of actionable steps.
And
so, yeah.
If there's a specific survey that you know, a member of the task force, Nancy, and correct me if I'm wrong, they can approach whoever it is and say, the task force would like to review your data in between this meeting and the next.
Yes.
And then, we have it at the next meeting, or, we help get it. Yep. So, at this point, because you're all been sworn in, you now have the charge from the first select person that you can do this. You can ask those questions. So yep. You are now able to ask someone for the data. And, we can, at the next meeting, when you come back, if you've asked them and they've said yes and we have it, that's great. If you've asked them and they've said no and we need to pursue it further, that's great too. But again, this gives us a forum for that.
And what I would say is I will find out about administering emails because it's something I don't know. If you want official emails to the task force, or if you want to use, Gmail, create own Gmail accounts for this, I'll find that out and can send, Jen Carpenter can send an email. One thing to add on to what Gina is saying, when you send out a communication, you are, yes, a member of the task force, but you're not necessarily representing, Ryan, do you want to add to this? Okay, go ahead, because you have experience with this. I was just going to say, you're not representing the whole group.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're fine on that. One of the things that I was thinking about is just logistical because, and you may want to set up like a Google Sheet system or something that people can see, because when you start this kind of work, one of the things you want to do is be on the same page so that you don't have two task members, plus it's a waste of time, two task members calling the same organization, reaching out to two different people in the same organization, getting different versions of things, and you become at cross purposes with it. So I would my suggestion is just to, from the get-go, set up some kind of communication where people your task force can look at it, and anybody else that's supporting them can look at it and see, my intention is to reach out to this group, the justice group at the high school. I will be calling them, this is my contact person. And so everybody can kind of double check from that. That was just one of my thoughts. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's a great point. And I think at least in the next couple of weeks, and Gina, so not to add to your plate, and I'm already in the zone, why don't I be the kind of clearinghouse for information in terms of, or CC me and Gina? I'm just trying not to overwhelm your inbox, Gina, but that way, to Ryan's point, we're not doubling down on and duplicating efforts.
Does everyone have access to Gmail? Because I think that would probably work the best, because that way it's just a living document and we can all just check.
I think that works.
Yeah.
You make everybody have access to it, and then you can see. That's a great place. Good ideas too.
There just may be a rule because of town, the public, what we talk about. So that's why I think just at least, especially because I'm on the board of selectmen, for the first week until I get the answer officially, I don't want anybody to say, well, they're trying to be, duplicitous or sneaky or not above board.
I think we also have to be careful because, there's the risk that all of our personal emails could then get disseminated to the public through our correspondences. And I don't think that any of us really want that, because we don't know how.
So that's why just for next week, just start if you're inclined. And to that end, at least for the next few weeks, while you are an official member of this task force, you're representing yourself. Like, don't speak on behalf of, you know, Doug, don't send an email on behalf of any, you know, send it as you. And again, identify yourself on the task force. Feel free to CC me. Again, in my position of Board of Selectmen, I can help channel things. But Karen, to your point, I just want to make sure we're being both careful to protect ourselves, but also careful to make sure that where we need to make sure we're being completely transparent, we're doing that. So I'm learning a lot of this as I go. So, you know, full disclosure. Anyone from the member of the public, I've seen a couple of people have joined. Anyone want to have any comments at this point? Are there other comments from the task force members? Anyone have something? Yeah, Doug.
Just, you know, this just a broad comment that as I was preparing for this meeting, I thought I'd maybe make some effort to figure out what I'm doing here. And went just looking at what other towns have done to address these similar sorts of issues. And not surprisingly, there's a wealth of information out there about other towns who have had initiatives like this. And I wonder if it'd be helpful to pull together a representative sample of what some other towns have done, just to map out the categories and dimensions of the report, even to even start outlining what the subheadings are going to be in the ultimate report. Because some of them were a little counterintuitive to me.
I think you've just given yourself homework, Doug.
Well, I figured that was coming. So yeah, I'd be happy to do that.
Anybody want to join in with Doug on that?
Say it again, exactly what you.
Just to do a quick, you know, not an exhaustive, but a review of what some other towns and, you know, cities have done with these sorts of task forces, and what some of the headings are and what some of the lessons learned they were warning against.
So best practices kind of scenario.
Yeah, basically, yeah.
Okay.
I can help you with that, Doug. If you want, we can email and kind of divide up towns that we could check out if you want to do that.
I have some stuff I pulled together, so I'll email you guys, send you some links to stuff, and we can go from there.
Perfect.
All right, great.
Can you just clarify, because I was typing, who just agreed to help Doug?
Sandra, Tamisha, and Steve.
And also members of the public, you are again invited to, if it's something that you're interested in, please don't feel like you couldn't join in, because that's really why we invited you.
My email, I'm going to put it, and for members of the public, I do have a Racial Equity Justice Task Force email, but I'm ashamed to admit I don't remember it. So for now, it's nlefkowitz@fairfieldct.org. I'm putting it in the chat. Anyone from the public that would like to get connected with this process, please email me and I will connect.
All right, so should we move on to the next agenda?
Yes. One thing that I'd like to make sure that is continually on the agenda is space for activities like Molly brought up, Molly McHugh had discussed, other forums, advocacy groups, and maybe that's an opportunity for people to report in on where Jamie had talked about some of the work she's doing with her group. That it'll just always be there as a space where if there's something that's coming up, we can inform one another, be supportive of one another, talk about them. It's really, again, no specific agenda reason except for to make people aware or to get involved. In your packet, I think you had something on the CCM. There's a racial and equity forum that's coming up, and I just want to pull this up. It is the community. It's Communities Advancing Racial Equity series through the Connecticut Conference of Municipalities, of which Fairfield is a member. And so they have a series of, did you get this in your packets? You should have been forwarded some information.
I received it, but I couldn't open it because there was an error.
Okay. So CCM Cares is, I'm just going to see, Communities Advancing Racial Equity Series. And again, it's really just here as a way of, if you are interested. And what might be great is if we decide that something will have value, Doug, along the lines of like, what are other towns doing and what are some other forums that are being held? Maybe someone could commit to participating and then report back into the group, and that would be where this would fall on our agenda. So there is one tomorrow night from 6:30 to 8. I can have Jen send this out again to the group. If someone does attend one of these sessions, we can add it to next week's agenda as a kind of a check-in. Is there anything going on in terms of other groups that someone wants to mention at this point? Jamie, I see you.
Yeah, just quickly, we just had a service at the Unitarian Church. There were 4 moms of Black children. And it's probably on the Unitarian website, but it was enlightening and I think helpful to hear about raising a Black child in Fairfield County, which sounds like quite a few of you have experience with. So the Unitarian Church website.
Anyone else? Ryan?
Yeah, just to make people aware that the Cultural Alliance of Fairfield County that I mentioned earlier, that I previously was part of, has been running like a 6-part series called Collective Action Against Racism and Inequity, which has been interesting. I've been going to those meetings, and there've been kind of public conversations and then kind of more drill down workshops, trying to get people who are in arts and culture thinking about action items, like actually, okay, we've got these thoughts now, what to do with them. So just to be aware that that's out there too and going on in the county.
This idea of us on the agenda about other groups and other work that's happening, it can be part of our listening project partnerships. It could be a sub agenda, or it could remain as its own. So that's something I want you guys to think about too, is do we invite some of these cultural partners in as one of the project partners, or do we just kind of keep, Fairfield Cares, Riney Noor, who's very involved, had talked to me about the connection between the work she's doing and racial equity and justice, some of the faith groups. So again, we could keep this as its own agenda item. We can invite people in. So I just want to throw this back to the group to think about who some of those groups might be that we invite in. Top of mind, I think it's safe to say that education and police for sure, but maybe even under the mental health space, like I brought up Fairfield Cares, that might be a group that we want to have come in.
There's
Connect.
also the, Gina, you know all about this because of your past and your children, but the Voices of Equity, is that what it's called at the high school? I feel like we should be tapping the brains of people because they are living and breathing it in a very different way. So I don't know if there's some sort of I just want them on the record. I don't remember if that's what it's called. Is that what it's called? Voices of Equity?
Voices for Equity, yeah. But they've merged with the, there's also a group at Ludlow too. So both high schools are working together, and there's a young adult group too. So there's a lot of youth in town who are engaged.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, I think we want to make sure that I would like to see that we are making sure that everyone in town who's working on in this platform, really, we're a clearinghouse for it. We're a place where people can kind of come to with those kind of things. And then also, some of the things that we've heard where people feel like they need help. And I'd love to have that be something that we do as well.
Mm-hmm. And this idea that, I referred to this when I was, when we were doing our Zoom interviews, if you will, this idea of the hub and spoke, racial equity and justice, kind of one is at the center of all of it, but all these spokes, there's a lot of intersection. So, you're talking about youth engagement, but now I'm also thinking about Doug and his involvement with trauma and teen suicide. And so there's so many interconnected pieces, you know, the police and use of force and how that might overlap. So again, I want us to be action item and goal oriented, and also create the space where we can problem solve. And Gina, what you're just saying, kind of help be a clearinghouse and a discovery, you know, a place for discovery for people. Anything else to add on the forums, advocacy groups? And again, this is a little bit free form, so feel free to weigh in.
No, I think it's great that you've thought about putting space. I mean, one of the common refrains is nothing about us without us. So while we are, of course, representatives of different perspectives, there's plenty of folks and spaces and groups of people that are not on this call either. So I think that's great that we are already building space for that.
Yeah. Kathy, was your hand up?
Just, I can email you the information that you can put in that agenda part that you're reserving space for. But the Council of Churches of Greater Bridgeport is doing a monthly anti-racism program that's been very beneficial, I think. Lots of people have been on it. It's very helpful. It's basically education. There are little bits of homework that people do each week. And then they meet via Zoom, obviously, for a lecture portion, but then also break off into small groups. And it's been very helpful to hear lots of different opinions, and especially working basically mostly with congregations. Greater Bridgeport is everywhere, but also in Bridgeport, which is really helpful. So I'll send you that information.
Yeah, and I want to echo here that we have an opportunity to be force multipliers in both directions. That as you know, you go out into your own networks, please remind people of this work and that they can tune in at any point, and that there's going to be a way. For some people, they'll only want to listen to the conversations, you know, the community forums. Some people will want to be more involved, but you know, we want, Alex, to your point, to really kind of create space for anyone that is engaged at any level. You know, for anyone whose window is open just a tiny crack, or if their window is wide open, you know, there's something for everyone. Molly, I'm thinking about your book club. You know, maybe someone only wants to engage in that way because that's their inroad. So again, from the sublime to the ridiculous, nothing too big, too small. Sandra, your hand was up.
Yeah, I just wanted to say we've had a racial task force at Wilton High School, and the guy who's been running them, he puts out like they've been having Zoom calls for the past few months. Actually, a lot of the teachers have been a little too overwhelmed with everything else going on at Wilton High School. We've had a rash of trauma at our school, but he is a wealth of knowledge too. So I'd like to reach out to him and use him as a resource if that's okay with you guys. I've never personally met him. He's in the other building, so I don't really wander out of my way, but out of my building. But so that's just one more resource that we can tap into. I think that will be hugely beneficial for us.
Right. Unless there are other comments at this point, I'd love to move on to the next item on the agenda, number 9, which is to hear, consider, and act, which, Karen, is something we need to record for the record. So I think, Gina, do you want to make the motion to?
So I want to make
October 26th, 5th, those dates that are in the chat as the accepted dates of 2020.
Right. I mean, do we have to have a discussion on it first?
Well, what you do is you have to make the motion to hear the dates of
so I make
October 20. You make the motion to hear it, and then we have a second, and then I say, is there any discussion? and then people can discuss, and then we either change it, make but what will be on the table is those dates.
So I make a motion that we discuss the dates of October 26th, November 5th, 17th, and December 3rd and 15th for the meetings for the remainder of 2020.
Yeah, and that is, or, and I'm gonna backpedal, you can just make a motion to act on the dates, and then the discussion can be the specifics, and we can change them around, unless those dates work for me, and, based on their schedule. You know what, let's stick with what you just said.
Discuss the dates.
Yeah, let's stick.
For the remainder of 2020. Okay.
She's good. You just say, I move that that future meetings will be October 26th, November 5th, 17th, December 3rd, and 15th. Then Nancy says, is there any discussion?
Yeah. So
Okay.
Gina, you made that motion. Is there a second to that motion?
I second
it. Sorry.
Karen seconded it. So
Yeah,
Gina,
no, who seconded it? Did I second it?
No, Innie did.
Got it. Thank you.
So Gina made the motion for October 26th, November 5th. It's all in the chat box. So if you want to record that, Innie made the motion. Is there any discussion?
So we tried to pick dates and alternate them between Tuesdays and Thursdays.
We had to move away from Mondays because it's Board of Selectmen and also RTM. Again, 6 p.m. seemed to be a time that worked best for everybody. Knowing that we are making meetings twice a month between now and the end of December, being mindful of Christmas and Thanksgiving, and knowing that you're gonna, go off and have your homework to do in between. All right, is there any further discussion? Seeing none, we can vote. All in favor of the meeting dates, the 26th, 5th, 17th of November, and December 3rd and 15th, say aye.
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 Any noes? Any abstentions? So that meeting schedule passes unanimously. The next item is we have to hear, act, and consider a board secretary. So does someone want to make the motion to discuss the position of board secretary? And basically you just move to just have, to hear, act, and consider that, and then we can have the discussion. So anyone?
So I, Anita Ingram, make the motion to consider and act upon a board secretary. Can we put it on the table for the group to discuss?
Yeah, well, so you make that motion, and then Steve, did I see you willing to second that?
Yes, second that.
Okay, so is there any discussion? I imagine there will be. So how do we feel about electing one person as opposed to taking turns, or what's the feeling here? Is there a feeling?
Well, does anybody want to do it?
First, I would love to share an opinion. These are two different skill sets, right? Engaging and participating and typing the minutes.
Right.
So my reluctance, for instance, of throwing my hat in the ring permanently is you can't kind of document and feel that stress if you want to be fully engaged. So that I'm just putting that out there. Perhaps somebody really loves this act of recording and they feel that they would really be great to serve in that capacity. But just being mindful that there are two different skill sets and it's a switch on and off.
And I am curious, and I don't know the answer to this, if it has to be an official task force member. Ryan, do you happen to know the answer to that?
Yes, I do. You can have anyone, and this is the way I've handled it for years. You have an official secretary on your task force, but you can have a recorder. You could pay someone to do it. You could have a volunteer do it. And then the secretary is responsible for editing the draft of the minutes and refining them and then submitting them under their name. But anyone could help you with that.
All right. Well, I like that idea. Anyone else have a thought about that? Is there anyone who would be actually willing to take the notes? Okay. So we're gonna have to think about that.
This is not me volunteering to take the notes. It's
Yeah.
me to support Karen's point of view. Just be very clear about that, Karen. That I think personally it's a thankless task and you really can't engage in the process if you're doing it. So I would really support or be supportive of the idea of rotating it. I just think it's
Okay. I do love this idea of someone kind of being the official person
Jamie, did you say
responsible.
something? Jamie, did you have something you want to say?
Well, I wanted to say that I would take one of the meetings, so I like the idea of rotating, but I don't want to commit to taking notes. But I would take notes for one of the meetings and hand them to the secretary to refine.
So then,
I
perhaps
would do the same thing. I don't want to commit to every single meeting, but I would definitely volunteer.
Okay.
From time to time. Yeah.
So given that, why don't we find somebody on the task force to be the official board secretary? And then we, with the understanding that we will rotate each week who takes the notes. Any?
So Nancy, the person who takes the notes in every meeting needs to really know the structure and have a template. Otherwise, everyone's note-taking style is different. So if you go that route, then I would strongly recommend a template be created.
Yeah, there is one. Jennifer provided one even for this because I had said I would do it for tonight.
Yeah.
So Jennifer provided a template. Actually, she filled out a lot of
right.
It was cool.
Thank you.
That
Yep.
exists.
There is a template. So given the motion on the table, would love to identify if someone wants to take on that official role, and what that would mean is just editing, clean it up to submit, but that we will, there is the understanding that the notes will be on a rotating basis, so that everyone and again, if every person here takes a turn, you're really only doing it once every several months.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe
I can take that on.
Just to make it easier on the person who is going to take this on, maybe we just decide tonight when you're going to be taking notes, so that person is assured that they are not going to be stuck taking it every week.
Yeah.
So do we need to make a motion?
Yeah, I mean, right now we are considering an act upon a board secretary. So we can make an amendment if there's someone who wants to throw their hat in the ring to be more specific, to take that on, to say, I make the motion for board secretary with the understanding that there'll be so if someone wants to make that motion, just to amend it, and then we can change what we're acting upon, which is voting for a board secretary with a rotating note taker. Would someone make that motion?
I think that was Eni, right?
Will someone make the motion to change it to that structure, if that's what we're inclined to do?
I make the motion that we have rotating note takers with one permanent secretary.
Okay. Is there a second to that motion?
Second. Alex seconds it.
Who seconded? Alex.
Alex, all in
Yep.
favor?
Aye.
Any noes? Any abstentions? Okay, so now we have voted on a structure. We need to actually vote on a secretary.
I would be happy to volunteer for that, to review, edit, submit.
Okay. And Alex, as the co-chair, I will also help facilitate that process, but I will move to nominate Alex Ocampo to take on the role of board secretary.
Second.
Steve Bogan seconds it. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any noes? Any abstentions? Okay,
Can we
great.
throw out the dates of when people are going to be taking notes so that we know? Who would like to take notes on the 26th?
I'll take notes on the 26th.
Thank you, Sandra.
Thank you.
November 5th. Thank you,
I see.
Jamie.
Thank you.
Oh, just repeat that for me. So 10:26 was Sandra and 11:05 was who?
Jamie Forbes.
Jamie Forbes. So not on the committee. Is that?
That's fine. Yep.
That's fine. Cool.
Because we have Alex Ocampo as the official board secretary, whose name will.
Got it. Good, good. Okay, cool. Clear.
It's like dictated by blah, 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 read by so-and-so.
Oh, that's
signed
great.
off. Yep.
Thank you, Jamie.
6:30?
Be down for December 3rd.
Who was that? Sonia?
Sonia.
That was?
Yeah.
Who was
Thanks, Sonia.
November?
No, November 17th.
I think
November 5th we already had. Never mind.
November 17th is Ryan.
Got it. Got it. That was
Thanks,
what I-
Ryan.
December 3rd. Yep. And then
Sonia.
12, 15.
I'll do the 15th.
And
Doug. Thank you.
Thank you all very much.
Beautiful. Gracias.
Making some decisions.
I love it. And I
Teamwork
feel
makes the
so,
dream work.
guys, you know what? These are in some ways the hardest decisions, these little logistical. So thank you. Okay, so I am going to move to add an item, which is any new business, which again, may or may not be necessary, but I want to make it official. So is there a second to that?
Can I ask a quick question? I'm
Yeah.
sorry. Did I hear 6:30 for the meeting time moving forward?
6 o'clock?
6 o'clock? Okay, thanks.
Is there a second to like the new business line item?
Second.
I said,
All right, so I just put it out there. Is there anything as
So I'm-
final, official?
Nancy, if we need to make this new business, what we'd said before, that we're going to, that for the next meeting, our plan is that people will come to the meeting with both suggestions of subcommittees that they will be interested in participating, chairing, building, whatever that is. And the other was ideas of what data we should look at in our first sort of glance at what we're doing.
And I think there was,
So
so
the
it,
next-
sorry. It was the three things.
So
It was
that's-
like the listening partnerships, it's what other towns are doing. Or is that, are you saying, is that part of data?
That's part of data. So that'll be, so.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we are, so the thought is that the next meeting is more about the structure of what this committee is going to do. Definitely for the next 3 months. And then, you know, we can decide at some point if we're going to change it but I'd love to come back at the next meeting. The agenda items will be revolving around building up the subcommittees and figuring out a way forward.
All right. Gina, is there anything that you feel we need to add, that we need to?
Not at this moment, but what I think, you know, we want to put in the hopper after we figure out what the structure is it's our timeline to really kind of in the next 3 months, you know, at some point and sooner rather than later, to really know how we're going to spend the next, we only got 15 months to do this. So kind of set some goals. Oh, and there was that one other item. Is Molly still on the call? So the election is right after the next
Thank
meeting.
you.
And I had a conversation with the chief of police about he'd heard from members of the community that they were really concerned about safety at the polls. And, you know, he's wanting to hear what the community thinks, because he recognizes that not everybody wants to see police at the polls one way or another. And so he really wants to kind of hear a little bit from the community. So I would love it if that could be something that we discuss the next meeting.
Great.
And so
You say concern with the safety. Is there something he's hearing or?
no, I think he heard from someone who said, I'm worried. And
Right,
so
okay, I got you.
generally his response would be, we'll just have, we'll have a presence at the polls, but also with an awareness of historically what that can mean for some members of our community. He actually, opens it up for a conversation to find out, how do people feel about that? And is there another way forward? And I thought this would be a good forum, because if we put it on our agenda for next week, we will hear from ourselves, but anybody else who might be interested in talking about it. And that might be something that would be helpful.
Thank you
Thought-
for remembering that. All right, is there anything else that anyone would like to add?
Just a very basic Captain Obvious question. Nancy, do you know when we're going to receive the information regarding the rules and structure of being on a task force?
Yeah, I've already asked Jennifer I thought she had sent that, so and maybe now that you're officially sworn in, but I'll reach out to her again tomorrow to make sure that you get all that. But, we follow Robert's rules, and, it is available, but there's a few pages that we send to you.
Great, that'd be
So,
helpful.
thank you. Yeah, of course.
That is not a Captain Obvious question, because
Yeah.
I've never done anything at this level, so I need basic 101.
Yeah, and basically, I'll tell you briefly, there are 4 governing bodies in town. There's the legislative body, which is the RTM, which is what Tamisha serves on. They kind of make up the rules, the ordinances. There's the executive body. The RTM is the legislative body, 40 people serve. Our town is broken up into 10 districts. 4 people serve from each district. Tamisha's in District 6. I served in District 1, but now I'm on the executive branch, which kind of makes the broader executive level decisions, how we spend our money, the kinds of programming, and there are 3 of us. There is a Republican majority. Brenda Kupchak and Tom Flynn are the Republicans. I'm the Democrat elected. So there are 3 of us. There's the Board of Finance, which decides, can we pay for all these programs that the executive body is sort of putting forth? And then there's a 4th entity, which is the school board. And they oversee about 65% of our town's budget. 65 cents of every dollar goes towards education spending. A little less, depends how you break it up. And so it's a $320 million budget, give or take. And those are the 4 entities that oversee kind of the decision making for the town. The task force is under the executive branch. And again, the good news for whatever we do is that it is all playing out in the light of day in public. And so we will have lots of opportunities to hold a lot of people's feet to the fire to make sure that the work of racial equity and justice is being heard and seen. So I'm really pleased that while working through the government can have there are real constraints, there's also real pros to doing it in this way. So that was a little civics lesson. I hope it was helpful. And by the way, then there are boards and commissions, and they're made up of subject matter expertise and are supposed to be the checks and balances to the various governing bodies. So no, not a dumb question about getting your board information. A good question. Anything else? Okay, so you all have your homework. Gina, anything you want to?
No, I think if we don't have anything else, I'm gonna
Yes,
move
Karen.
that we
Can I just clarify
we
something? Because
adjourn
I don't
the
know if it
meeting.
matters, but we elected a board secretary, but we're a task force. So semantically, does that matter?
Probably, but we are being, the way we've been sworn in, we're operating as a board. So
Okay.
I think you can put task force / board secretary.
Okay.
Because all our governing rules and the way we're functioning in this public way is as a board. So
cool.
All right, Tamisha, thank you. We're about to adjourn. So do I have a motion, Tamisha, to adjourn?
One more quick question.
Sorry. Yes.
For whoever takes the notes and gets them to Karen or whatever, should we expect them by like Tuesday at noon the next day or something?
No. Karen, what happens is the person taking notes will submit them to Alex the next day. And then Alex, technically it's supposed to come out within 24 hours before the next meeting.
Okay.
But it'd be great to kind of let's get them off our plate so that we can get the notes out into the world. I encourage you to take the notes that you need to be effective in the work that you have for your week ahead.
Yeah, and I think Jennifer said this, because these are going to live on the town website, it is in our best interest to get them up there quickly rather than have any member of the public who is curious go there and not see them. That'll impede our transparency that we're going to be working for. So,
and so I'm going to be sending this recording over to the town to have it posted so that people can refer to it as well.
Sounds great. Thank you.
All right. So now with that, I say, do I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
So who was the one who moved?
Tamisha.
Tamisha, and seconded by Steve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 All right, the first meeting.
All right.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good to see everybody.
Thanks,
And I am stopping this recording now.
All right.